Well, Imperial released its first half numbers this morning. At the desk earlier on, I spoke to the Chief Executive, Mark Lamberti. Let's take a look at our discussion.
Yes, but particularly because of the Rand movement. And of course, that never happened during the period. It happened before that. As you can imagine, when we buy a motor car, we have it in stock for a while and we have forward cover on it. So if the Rand moves today, we only feel it in about 9 months to a year's time. And it's the delayed effect of the Rand weakening that's coming through, because the Rand has in effect weakened 40% since May 2012. And that's filtered through to just one part of our business, but it's an important part of our business, and that's the new vehicle import part of our business. The other parts of the group performed relatively well.
Is this a trend that might be expected to continue, especially after the volatility we've seen in the currency? It's just been sustained.
I think it depends on how dramatically and how long the deterioration of the Rand is. You know, since for almost 10 years, it's been under 8 Rand to the dollar, and then there was a time when it even firmed. So that weakening has happened dramatically and over the last 2 years, and that's what we felt. It's impossible to pass through price increases to any consumer of 40% over 2 or 3 years.
Exactly. Let's touch on some of the sweet spots in your numbers, though. It's the recent acquisitions of Emirates and EcoHealth, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Correct.
The potential that's been unlocked by these two companies, it's something that you're very bullish on, reading through the announcement.
We're very bullish on Africa in general, north of the border. We've grown a business there that on an annualized basis is a 10 billion Rand business in 4 years. And EcoHealth and Emirates are contributors to it. Emirates, we haven't had long enough to really make an impact on these results, but it's an interesting business. It assembles medical supplies and pharmaceuticals for the aid agencies throughout emerging markets. And so that's an interesting business. EcoHealth we've had for over a year now, are doing very nicely, both of them.
It almost sounds bad to say this, but has the threat of Ebola potentially presented an opportunity to that segment of the business?
We've done a lot of supply into that part of the world, yes.
And the success rate of that?
We hope that the products we've supplied have helped people to live, but certainly we've supplied a lot of product into Ghana and adjacent areas. Yeah.
The oil price, that must have had a significant impact on your numbers, or again, we'll see this in the longer term?
Yes, you know, I think most people would think that if you run a logistics business and the price of oil goes down, you benefit. That's not the case, because in all of our contracts, the oil is a variable factor, or the price of diesel is a variable factor. So if we do a contract with a local retailer or a manufacturer, if the price of oil goes, or the price of diesel goes up, we charge them, and if it comes down, we don't charge them. So that doesn't play into it. But in Africa, I would guess there's no doubt that the oil price is having an effect on Nigeria. We haven't felt that yet, but there are clear pressures there.
Are you worried that it might still have continued pressures in the numbers going forward?
I think it'll affect the currency a little, which means that our ability to you know, buy and sell at the right prices will be challenged a little, but for the moment we're not that worried about that.
Let's touch on the opportunities on the rest of the continent, which you're very bullish on. We always hear this topic about inter-regional trade and inter-African trade. Are we seeing that those little red tape folders are being moved away? In other words, are governments being more cooperative to make your business actually a lot easier?
I wouldn't say so. I think we are good at being able to do cross-border transportation, and we understand how to manage that. Most times we're doing that with contracted vehicles. We don't want to own 1,000 vehicles running around Africa, so that we are contracting out in large part. But we are in the 3 major hubs, as you observe, in SADC and in East Africa and West Africa. And so we are building out from those, hoping that over time to get a footprint where we can think of some kind of rationalization across the continent. We describe it as a 3-phase process of a land grab, where we're actually going out and buying businesses, getting the presence on the ground, building the warehouses that we need to, particularly in pharmaceuticals. We need to build temperature-controlled warehouses, which we do, and then getting our principals, who are people like GSK and the Diageo on the FMGC side, getting those principals to put more and more through that infrastructure, and then probably in 3 or 4 years' time saying, well, how do we rationalize and consolidate? So it's an exciting story. We grew over 80% revenue in this period and over 90% of profits.
Are you looking
in Africa?
In Africa alone.
Yes.
So this clearly then juxtaposes the opportunities on the continent versus what's happening in the US and in the Eurozone.
Well, the US is growing quite nicely. We've got a very small presence there, but the Eurozone has been tough. The sanctions on Russia have been tough on Germany because it's still a big export destination for Germany. And our businesses there are geared around a lot of export activity, both in the manufacturing of vehicles, in our inland waterway transportation, and so on. So we felt the German economy being soft, but the optimist in me is saying that the last quarter growth of 0.7%, you know, if that annualizes at something like 2.5% plus, I think Germany will look good going forward. So
there are measures that you put in place in order to bypass the challenges at the moment?
Yes, I think every one of our businesses, you know, there's a great entrepreneurial DNA in the Imperial Group, and people look for opportunities and circumvent problems, but when the rand moves that fast, it's tough.
Exactly. I want to come to a more personal note. At the beginning of March, you'll be celebrating a year in office. Correct. Officially. Your first year anniversary, what's it been like reflecting on
it's been wonderful. You know, it's a large business, it's complex. I kind of identify in a personal way with many of the things we do. I love the engineering in our logistics businesses. I'm a car guy. So, you know, it's easy to identify with the business. And of course, we've spoken about the part of our car business that is suffered. But of course, we own an equally big business where we are selling cars that are imported by the local OEMs, and that's going fabulously. So, you know, I identify with all of the businesses. There's some outstanding people in the group with deep experience. And so I think that my leadership has got to be additive. You know, Bill Lynch left a fantastic legacy. Hubert Brody did a great job of putting some financial disciplines into place. And I think it's my job now to lead the team in taking it to the next level through great strategy and through developing that leadership among some very, very fine people.
Let's touch on that next level. In the next 5 years, what will Imperial look like with your touch on it?
I don't think that it's my touch. It's a large business, but I think we would certainly see this team very committed to unlocking the value. There's no question in my mind that Imperial is undervalued at the moment. The assets and particularly some of the parts of that business are undervalued, and I think it's our job to unlock that value and to grow the business, and I'm very confident that we'll do both over the medium term.